Jai Saram, everyone, and thank you for giving me this space to be with you in these difficult times. And picture behind me of Swami says at the bottom, "Why fear when I am here?" And I want to talk about this, about miracles and the things I've experienced with Swami, but also about what Swami means to me on a practical level right now in these tricky times, and whenever I wasn't in India. And so Dr. Upadhyay said in one of his talks, we're just instruments, and God is using us in miraculous ways, and He's using our talents, even the ones we never knew we had. So I never knew I was brave enough to go to India and make a film about Swami when I first went on my search to see him. And I don't know why God is doing what, but he has his plans. And I was always intrigued by Swami saying that he can perform all sorts of miracles, but the greatest miracle is the transformation of a human heart. And this is what I want to talk about, is my transformation of my human heart. And it means this transformation makes us the miracle, makes me the miracle. And so after I made the documentary, The Miracle of Puttaparthi, a colleague of mine called me from Germany, from our head office, and said, well, Louise, we've just been to India. This was the big company, German television. They've just been to India, and they wanted to film Sai Baba to make a documentary. And my alarm bells went on because I've not known television at that time to be loving to gurus or say anything nice about anybody who would go to India to seek the blessing of a guru. So she said to me, we went all the way to India with a camera team and didn't get permission to film. How come you got permission? How come you made your documentary? Well, the answer is I haven't got the foggiest. Only Swami knows why I was allowed, why he steered me in that direction. That was my very first film I made independently of my work. So he took me by the hand, and I want to share with you this miracle. Now I want to say there's no need to be jealous, because God always sees the bigger picture, which we don't see. And I want to give you an example. I was once in India, and I shared the room with an Iranian lady. She had huge trouble of getting to Puttaparthi, leaving her country and coming to the ashram to see Swami. And I became so green with envy, because she had 3 interviews in 1 week. And I thought to myself, well, Louise, this is not good enough. This is not very nice. This human heart needs transformation. Jealousy is the last thing I want to experience. But obviously, we are human. And I thought, what, 3 interviews in 1 week? And, I had 2 interviews, and we always compare, which is the strangest human thing, but it's natural. And, but I was green with envy, and I thought to myself, well, what does Swami want from me? What can I give Swami at this stage? And that is inner view. So that jealousy and envy I experienced had to be uprooted. I had to get it out of my system once and for all, because it is not a pleasant experience. So the teaching of Swami just follows me in everyday life, in everything I do. I try to be aware of the of all the faults and unpleasantries I sometimes feel or think inside of me. So Swami's teaching is helping me on a daily basis to look at everything and like on an onion, peeling off layer by layer until I guess I find just light inside of me, if that is possible, light and love and peace. Just to give you another story, which was a huge learning as well for me. In an interview, we were quite a large group of people, and a group from Holland was sitting behind me. I was that was in Puttaparthi. Swami's chair was to my right, and I was sitting next to him, and the group was right behind me. And there was Sandra and Emi Levi were in the interview room. And suddenly Swami got up and he said, I'm giving saris. So he went to his cupboard and got out a handful of saris, 3 or 4 of them. And he was just about to hand one to me and I stretched out my hand like I do now, and like a chameleon, one of the ladies behind me took it. So I froze like a deer in a flashlight. I thought, oh, what is my learning right now? How do I cope with this one? Do I feel rejected? What do I? And I closed my eyes in the interview room and looked inside, and I thought, what on earth is my learning here? I was just about to get one of Swami's robes. Did I say sorry? I meant one of Swami's robes, and it was snatched away. So what is my learning? And I came to the conclusion that it was detachment, because so much in life is given and taken away. So if we always react and feel a loss and in a crisis, then that's going to be a very painful journey. So I thought this would have been probably the most precious thing I could have received from Swami, a rope to hold on to, but I didn't get it. So detachment was my answer, and I opened my eyes and looked at Swami, and he smiled at me, and then he said, "She's a good woman." Now that was my reward. In a way, that was bigger than getting the sari. I keep saying sorry, getting the rope in the end. Although, to be honest, I would have loved to have it too, to be really honest. But the treasure was that he said, "She's a good woman." And people try to say, "Oh, you're not confident enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough." But I think the truth is what the conclusion I came to, that it was a lesson of detachment. And on a practical level, how Swami is coping, how Swami is helping me in life situations while I was in London. I had quite a stressful job at German television, and the computer screens, we had long working hours, often sometimes 12, 14, 16 working hours. My eyes were burning, and I could hardly see out of them without them streaming. And I had an invitation to a bhajan singing in North London, where lots of vibhuti comes out of Swami's pictures. And I was sitting in the front row with all these wonderful pictures of Swami and Shirdi Baba in front of me, and all the statues, vibhuti everywhere. And we started to sing the bhajan. And suddenly I had vibhuti flung into my face, into my eyes, and it flew. I was covered in it. And yet there was no one in front of me. I was in the first row in front of the pictures. So I thought, okay, Swami, you want me to rub vibhuti onto my eyelids, which I then did for a long, long time. In the night, I rubbed vibhuti on my eyelids, and they really helped and soothed my eyes. And another event where I was very ill in 2004 and had to have an operation. And I was very scared, very, very scared. And I rubbed myself from top to toe with vibhuti. And on the day of the operation, and I didn't care what the doctors, nurses, what anybody would say. And I had in one hand, I had this little picture of Swami I held on tight during the operation. And on the other hand, I had a box of a little plastic bag Swami gave me with vibhuti. And then I went under into I was anesthetized. And when I woke up, I was in a state of bliss. I woke up singing out loud, glory to God. And the nurse was standing on my bed and she said, "Are you all right?" She looked really concerned, really worried. And I said to her, "Oh, I'm in a state of bliss." And she looked completely puzzled. I guess she never had a patient coming out of a serious operation feeling happy. But happy I felt, and it was just for me, holding on to Swami was my savior. So this is what I'm trying to say, especially at this difficult time, holding on to Swami, no matter what. Now, I also want to tell you how I came to Swami. Because of my work, I started having heart palpitations and all sorts of problems. Couldn't sleep at night. I saw pictures in front of me from sitting in front of a television screen. And my doctor said, "Well, you gave me a huge prescription of Valium or beta blockers or whatever." And I said, no. I've got to change my life, and found healers in Croydon and made my appointment. And there he was. In the healing room was a photograph of Swami. And his eyes I looked at his eyes and they just drew me in. And even when I closed my own eyes, I could still feel him. I could see his face. So I've been dreaming about going to India, wanting to go to India ever since I was a little girl. I always knew one day I would be getting there. And I knew when I saw this picture that this would be the reason for going to India. And they had a library of books, and of course I took all sorts of books at home, Dr. Sandweiss and Hislop and Peggy Mason, everybody who was anybody in the Sai family. I read it, I absorbed it, but one thing, I mean, I'm brought up a Catholic in a very conservative German household, and I can't say up to that point I've ever experienced a miracle or contemplated a miracle. The last thing I knew was 2,000 years ago when Jesus walked the earth and manifested the loaves of breads and fishes and wine at a wedding, and I read all these about all these miracles and the love pouring out of everyone towards this guru. And I thought, oh my God, why does everybody turn into a pink marshmallow when they finally find this guru? And that didn't stop me though from keeping on reading. And I found Amy and Sandra Levy in North London who just happened to start a group to go to India. That's what they did at the time. And we were about 50 people. And obviously we had a meeting prior to going to India. And I went to Harrow, to their home. And immediately I knew my karmic burden was looking at me, because Sandra and Emmy are Jewish, and I've carried all my life this incredible burden about being German. And this is a story I want to also share with you. It's the miracle of transformations. And the gift Swami gave me is to free myself of that immense burden of a karmic pressure. And so I thought, oh my God, here we go again. How will they receive me? But there was no question of she's German or anything. All I experienced was love. The love of God, the love of friendship. And so we planned this fantastic trip to India, and coming to Bangalore, I mean, it was all new for me, all absolutely new land. And the things I've experienced, I never even dreamt about. So in Bangalore, the first night we were there, I had this dream of Swami, and in the dream, I had this like a little cartoon, a Disney cartoon. I had this little door here where my heart is, and Swami entered through that little door in my heart and then expanded. And I thought, oh my God, you never get out of there. And I drew this picture. Maybe you can see it afterwards. It was such a powerful experience, and I woke up feeling so happy and knowing I was doing the right thing, because I had quite a few challenges to overcome to get to India in the first place. I forgot to let you know that we went just before the Gulf War started, and that was a very important time at my workplace. They were preparing for war, war news about the Gulf War, and my boss said to me, "You can't go. There's no way you can go. You know, we need you here." And so I was in tears. I said, "Well, give me one day to think about it." And I had a long meditation, and I had every divinatory gadget I could consult, because in those days, before going to Swami, I couldn't ask Swami for help. Well, I could have, but didn't think of it. So I asked the rune stones and God knows what, the pendulum. And the answer was evidently that you've got to go. So I went back to work next day and I said, look, I have to go to India. I have no choice. This is life and death. This is the most meaningful thing I could ever do. And my boss said, well, this may have consequences. You may not have a job when you come back. So I thought, well, I have to take that risk. So with that in mind, I went the next day and to India, and now we're back in Bangalore. So off we go to see Swami. And obviously in Puttaparthi, this very stressful situation starts, is interview. We all have to have an interview. Our group has to have an interview, where we were split in two groups because 50 people were too large a number to squeeze in one interview room. So we're 25 people in each group, and we got a scarf and a ring, and went to darshan every day, prayed, did seva in the canteen. And I want to be very honest about this, about seva. I didn't do it from the heart. I did it because I wanted something. I cut onions and peeled potatoes and chopped tomatoes and whatever was necessary, washed plates. But my heart wasn't in it. All I could think of was interview. And few days went by and we didn't get one, which sort of was a bit of a crisis. But the worst thing was to come, because Swami just disappeared. He left. And in 1991, I don't know why, but nobody told us where he went. And that was actually very painful. I felt like an abandoned child. And I thought, my God, I've come thousands of miles and he disappears. And we were told to do more seva, do more introspection, do more prayer, do more of everything to attract him to come back. So I did frantically chop more of everything, more onions, more potatoes, but he didn't come back. So after 3 days, a handful of people, 4 ladies and a young man, we got very restless and unruly, and we said, we want to hire a bus and look for Swami. So we got this little rusty bus. I always say it was just held together by a wing and a prayer. And we took off. We said, well, let's start with Bangalore. That's the nearest place. So we went to Bangalore, and lo and behold, there he was. You can imagine our happiness. And we had to find a room. The ashram was packed. It was evident that Swami was there because there was lots of people milling, no place in the ashram. So we found this tiny room, I think this lovely Indian family in the village along the high street. They must have given up their beds for us. So I shared a room with 2 friends, Laura and Rose and myself, and I slept on this. It was the narrowest couch I've ever seen, a red PVC couch, and I slept like a tin soldier all night. I kept waking up. I could hear chanting all night, chanting, and I kept thinking I must get up and look where it is and even join in and do chanting myself. But I was too tired, too weak to do that. So I fell asleep chanting. It was absolutely beautiful. So next morning, I saw our lovely landlady, and I asked her, I said, Madam, where was all this, where were all the monks? I presumed there were monks. Where were all the monks chanting? And she looked at me as if I'd gone completely mad. And she said, Madam, no chanting. And she pulled me out of her little house and showed me a factory. Behind her house was a giant, I don't actually know what it is. All you who know Brindavan better than I do, there's this big, is it a steel manufacturer? I have no idea. But it was a sledgehammer going down all night and all day. And had I known it was a mechanical sound, I would have not slept a wink. So I somehow knew in my heart that it was a welcome gift from the guru I was searching for. It felt like this wonderful welcome gift because this chanting was so out of this world that a sledgehammer sound was turned into this was just a miracle for me. So now we'd found Swami. We got the young man said he's going back to Puttaparthi to get the rest of our group. So he left in a taxi and came back the next day. And here we were again, all together, very happy to be together. And we were on our mission again. Obviously, we wanted interview. But this time, things were different. We sat in the near the big tree in the courtyard in Brindavan, and in the blazing heat. And a friend of mine from Croydon had given me a sari, and it was so hot. It was a thick cotton sari, and I was literally melting. And I had a girl sitting next to me, 21 years old, and she had a brain tumor. And she started drawing Oms into the ground, into the sand. We were sitting on the sandy ground. And so I thought, I do the same, because this is, you know, I want to attract Swami. And I was seriously thinking that if I do the Om signs, he's going to be drawn like a magnet. And she told me her story. She was just diagnosed with this brain tumor and didn't have long to live. But she was the sweetest spirit. She wasn't in any way begrudging her fate. She wasn't expressing any anger towards God and saying, why me? She was completely peaceful. And all she wanted now, she didn't even think that healing would be, that Swami would heal her. She just wanted to see him. And then whatever happens, that would be it. So I was very impressed with this young woman. And so we sat together drawing Oms in the ground. And then Swami came out of his spaceship-like dormitory and made a beeline for us. So I thought, oh my God, this is working. The magnet is working. All the Oms in the ground, they're pulling him towards us. So he came and then asked our group leader, Helen, where do you come from? And so on. And then said, go for interview. So I quickly got up. At that time I was pushing a wonderful lady called Linda. She was in a wheelchair, and I was pushing her into the grounds where Sai Baba's home is, and we were waiting there, and I was just in awe of the beauty of all the animals in the garden, of the flowers, and we were waiting there for Baba to come after he's collected all the letters and done his rounds. And he came and then called me, and I was supposed to push the wheelchair up the ramp to his to go inside. And I don't know, I'm fairly strong, I've got good muscles, I'm fairly strong, but the wheelchair was rolling backwards on me. I couldn't push it up. And I think that was another trick of Swami, really, because he said to me, "Go get husband." And literally those words, I know all this because I wrote a diary of every moment in India. So I've written it all down. And so he says, "Go get husband." Now, the amazing thing is that this wonderful man who then pushed his wife up the ramp is now my husband. We married 4 years after Linda passed away, and to me that is yet another miracle, because I do feel Swami's presented me my soulmate. So I'm very grateful. So inside the interview room, I placed myself. You see, this is I was so excited. I was like a child in a sweet shop. And I placed myself right next to Swami's chair, which also, there's the door for the interview room. And the smaller interview room. And then Swami came in, and I want to read this to you because another miracle happened. My now husband, but he was given in Puttaparthi a tape recording of this interview, which is I've never even heard of. I didn't know there was anybody with a tape. And why did he choose my husband to give him that tape? And a few years ago, I'd written a book about my journey with Swami. And when I came to I transcribed my diary, but obviously I only had about the interview what I remembered and I saw through my own perspective. And he said, "Oh, if you're on in that chapter of writing about the interview, I have a tape. So we have an audio tape. I've got an audio tape with Swami's voice, with the entire interview. And this for me is such an amazing miracle. And I want to read a little bit from the book to share with you. Sai Baba sits down and asked, "Where is God?" Most people have a quick answer. "In the heart, Swami." "No," he replies, "the heart is only small. God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's everything. What is the way to God?" "Love is the way to God." He answers the question himself and smiles. "I'm drinking in the sound of his voice. Have I ever heard a sweeter, gentler voice?" The devotee asks, "We have a devil and we have a God?" Swami says, "Everything is God." Where is God? God is everywhere. Everything is God. You are also God. With you, in you, around you. Physically, you are a man. But you are not that. You are that which is Atma. Baba focuses his attention on an Italian woman Turning to a large pile of letters he has collected from devotees earlier during darshan, hundreds of letters in fact, he picks out the very letter from a huge pile of letters. And everyone went, ah, and in the room, and was very impressed. Swami, without opening the letter, speaks about its content and why it was written. You have cancer, he tells her. Swami will help. He pushes up the right sleeve of his orange robe up to his elbow, perhaps to show that this is not trickery. And he starts circling his right hand, palm facing down. And I first see a light appear in the center of his palm, and then an object emerges. I see a plastic bag containing long red pills. Ah, even louder than before. He catches the bag with his left hand and tries to open it, but can't. And he jokes, Swami can make a bag, but he can't open it. Laughter. He hands the bag to her husband, a gentleman in his early 60s perhaps. Take twice a day, Swami instructs her. Then he circles his right hand again, and this time we can see the manifestation of a very large lady's wristwatch. The dial is at least 4 centimeters in diameter, with a gold surround and 3 long black cords with big golden beads as straps. It fits perfectly. The woman is beaming with happiness and gratitude. Swami tells her, when you're back in Italy, you will forget that Swami has told you, and that I will help you. The watch will remind you every day. Westerners like looking at watches. Laughter. Then Swami turns once again to her husband. Don't be jealous, because I give her so much attention. She needs help. She will be okay. The husband smiles and nods knowingly. There are several ministers present. Swami takes them into an even smaller private interview room, and he leaves the door wide open, perhaps for me to witness even more miracles. As I am sitting right next to the door, I'm privy to another act of love. First, he diagnoses one of the ministers, telling him that he had cancer of a certain type. I cannot understand what type. The man agrees with Swami's diagnosis. Then the hand circles again, and a glow of bright light appears in the center, in the palm of Swami's hand. And a Shiva lingam, an egg-like shape that Hindus use in their daily worship and rituals, manifests. Swami instructs the minister to pour water over the lingam during his daily prayers and drink the water several times a day to help his cancer. I can feel the love Sai Baba is showering over this sick man, the love of a most caring mother. This love is a tangible presence, seemingly boundless, unconditional, sweet, and beyond our understanding of human love. I feel very privileged to be in this prime position, from which I can see and hear everything. And I still don't know how come I understood, because I'm sure they were speaking in Hindi or I don't know what language, but I seem to be able to understand some of the conversation. Anyway, at one point, Baba looks smilingly at me and says, "Big eyes, look away." He must know perfectly well that I'm totally mesmerized and will not take my eyes off him. The fact that he calls me Big Eyes thrills me to bits, as I heard it was a gift to be called a special name. I felt very blessed to be a witness. All manifestations aside, the biggest miracle is this immense, tangible, never-ending stream of love flowing from him to one and all. A devotee asked the question, the Atma never dies and is never born. What is it that goes to the next life? Swami says, that is consciousness. There is no life, there is no death. From conscious comes conscience, then comes consciousness. Everything is coming from consciousness. And then there's a gap in the recording. And Swami continues, this is my body, but what is real? My senses? You are not the body, not your senses. Everybody is God. In you, within you, around you, that is God. Physically, mentally, there are so many differences, but inside all is God. And the best way to know God is to love, 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 love. So that was just an excerpt from that much longer interview. And I feel very blessed to witness that. My eyes, meanwhile, are only big because of makeup, but to be called big eyes, I still feel the sweetness of that moment. When I was back at home in Croydon, I received a tape from Aimé Levy. He had filmed our groups, and I think it was his first film. It was, I think, 8 hours long, but anyway, very long film. And I sat down, I had the day off, and I sat down at home and with a cup of coffee and watched the film, and it sort of filled in the gaps because we were two groups. I could see what the other group had been doing, and they had an interview on the last day, which was lovely. And I was watching the interview, and in India, Helen, our group leader, she asked me to sing a song, and that song was Shalom, my friend, a Jewish song. And she asked me to sing it on my own bhajan style. And so when I watched this at home, that was the end of the film. I watched myself singing Shalom, my friend. And then the focus of the camera went to Swami's picture and to his big eyes. And I don't know what happened at that moment in time, but I completely broke down. I had a cathartic cry, and I don't know how long I cried, half an hour. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop myself. And I knew something very big was happening here, because it was so unusual, so powerful. And when I finally stopped crying, I felt as if this karmic burden was lifted off my shoulders, and I could breathe. I felt lighter, and I knew 108% that it was Swami's blessing for me to be free of this huge karmic burden. And I just want to say that, you know, we're looking at the trinkets and the medallions and whatever Swami does, but my God, this was the greatest gift I could have received from him, because it changed my life completely. It changed my outlook completely. It dropped this fear of being limited as a German. But that's not the end of the story. I just wonder how we're getting on with time. I didn't realize I've talked for so long. But anyway, I was longing for the company of my Sai friends, Sai family, and there was this crew retreat planned. And I thought, I must go. Friday to Sunday, everything planned, A to Z. The speakers, the singers, everything was planned by the lovely Sai president lady at the time. And so I joined them on a Friday night, and Saturday I attended a workshop on the collective unconscious, which I heard of, C.J. Jung. And the lecturer was very, very knowledgeable. And I was listening to what he had to say. And then he said, some people take on the karma of their country. I don't know the reason why somebody would do that, but it happens. Maybe it's in their karma to do that sort of thing. So I never heard that in my life, and something in my head exploded, went bing, and I felt like fainting. I felt hot and cold, and then he asked me, he said, are you all right? And I said, yes. I just closed my eyes, and I felt inside myself, I heard I guess my inner voice saying, you must speak about your experience, you must speak. And I've never given a public speech. I wouldn't dream about it. I'm way too way too shy, she says, sitting here talking to Zoom screen. But so I keep hearing this inner voice saying, you must talk about your experience. So I go back to my room, and I did this deal with the gods. I did this deal with Swami, and I said, Swami, I might be completely deluding myself, but if my experience is real, if it's true, I need a sign. I need, you must give me a sign. If I go out of my room into the compound, and the first person I encounter is the Sai president, I will ask her if I can talk. So I thought, well, nothing would come of it. And it was dark, and we're all going for supper, and I step out of our dormitory, and there she is, the first person in front of me is the Sai president. So my heart went sky high, and I didn't dare to ask her. I said, like the doubting Thomas, it took me 3 times before I had the courage to go on to her table and said, excuse me, I hear this inner voice, and it wants me to speak about my experiences. And she looked at me very kindly, and she said, do you have anything interesting to say? And I said, I have no idea. I've never spoken in my life. And she waited for a moment and looked at me, and then she said, okay, you have 20 minutes. And I thought, oh my God, now you've done it. You've put your foot in it. Now you've got to say something. And she said, tonight, so Saturday night came. It was the happiest, most wonderful, funniest evening. And I thought, oh, what I have to say doesn't really fit into this wonderful atmosphere of joy and laughter. And the evening went, we sang the arti, and I was somehow relieved somehow sad that it wasn't my turn. And then the Thai president came running to me and she said, tomorrow, you're the last speaker tomorrow. So Sunday came and I gave a speech in front of 400 people. And I didn't realize so many Jewish people were there, but there were shaloms and tears and laughter and warmth and love and forgiveness. And then I have another very long story to tell, but I think we have to stop at this point. It went, I'm not sure.
No, sister, we have good time, so you may continue.
Sairam, thank you.
Sairam.
So I was the last speaker on that day, and I went up on stage. I had no piece of paper, no concept, nothing. I didn't even know what would come out of me. I think there is a recording of it somewhere in the universe, but I don't know where. And my 20 minutes turned into 40 minutes. And there was this lovely Indian lady sitting in front of me in the first row. And she kept saying to me, I pray for you, don't cry, don't cry. Because she could see me getting emotional and fighting my emotions. And so I gave this 40-minute talk about the burden I felt being German and the burden I felt towards the Jewish community. And then at the end of the talk, I really don't know what I said. I was like in a trance and no one could stop the flow of words. I felt like the words were just flowing, and people got up, and I noticed that the amount of handkerchiefs and tears and people saying shalom, and it was completely overwhelming. So I sat down in my chair, and we sang the Arti again. And obviously, you know, it was a big hall, about 200 women on one side, the men on the other side. And the women were allowed to go out first of the hall, of the compound. And I was sitting fairly much at the back, and one of the first women to get out of the room. And I walked with a friend of mine from Ireland. And suddenly I saw this young man, and he looked at me, and I thought, he didn't look as if he was from this time. His jacket was too tight, his trousers too short, nothing fitted properly. And I said, I nudged my friend and I said, have I seen him before? And said, look, who is this young man who's looking at me? And she looked at me and completely puzzled and said, what young man? I said, well, this one standing here. And she said, you must be the only one who can see him. And I knew he was Jewish. And the strange thing was that time and space disappeared completely at that moment in time. And we just looked at each other. And I knew something extraordinary was happening here, but I didn't know what. And I had another, we were pushed, all these hundreds of people pushing, and so we were pushed, and I kept looking at him until we lost eye contact. But I knew in my heart he was Jewish and he wasn't from this time. So a Sai devotee from Bath then came to me and said, Louise, can we sit down under the tree? She said, you're the first German. Sorry, it makes me so emotional. Thank you, Swami. She said, I made this promise to myself never to speak to a German in my life. And she said, I don't know what compelled me, but you know, your speech. So we sat under a tree and we talked. I can't remember what was said anymore because I was completely taken to a cloud. And after we stopped talking, I just meditating and then went on a search to find this young man. Couldn't find him anywhere. And I think deep in my heart, I knew that he wasn't there physically. He was a spirit I saw. And I always tried to find the answer to who he was, why I saw him, what this experience was about. But what I do know for sure is that there is a message for all of us in there. And Swami, this belief in reincarnation, in incarnation, that we all have been here before. We have had other lives. And I called Peggy Mason in my despair to find out what happened at this moment. And she said, well, maybe Louise, you were looking at yourself in another life. Maybe you released the pain of this lifetime with your speech. I don't know, and I don't wish to step on anyone's feet, but this was the biggest experience in my life. And there are lots more stories about Swami I could tell you, and miracles and events. But I feel to say thank you for this opportunity to talk and to be so close to Swami. Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. Sai Ram, brothers and sisters. Professor Keith Critchlow. He passed away in April of this year on Pink Full Moon Day. And obviously, Swami and Keith are watching us doing this interview. I just want to give you a brief glimpse and say how special Professor Critchlow was. He was a master of sacred geometry, sacred architecture, and Swami was looking for the perfect architect for his super speciality hospital. And a man called Isaac Tigret, he used to own several hard rock cafes all over the world. He came to see him in his office in London and at the Royal Institute of Architecture, and he asked him, he said, would you like to go to India and meet this holy man and discuss this big project in India? So he said, yeah, if my wife can come, I will go and look at your holy man. And so Isaac and Keith Critchlow went to Puttaparthi, met Swami, and in the interview with Keith Critchlow, Swami said to him, he said to all the people present, he said, this architect is blind on one eye, but he can see with this eye, which I think was remarkable. And I can only vouch for that because I've had experiences of Keith Critchlow seeing with the intuitive eye. He was perfectly capable to walk in the dark where I would be stumbling over stones, and he would walk on because he trusted his inner eye. the hospital of Puttaparthi is, the super speciality hospital is a miracle in itself. As Professor Critchlow said, it was built within 1 year, within a space of 1 year. They've designed, they've equipped, and had the first heart operation on a very young boy. And sorry, it's my nerves. It's always at the beginning of the interview. It's my nerves running away. In the West, a hospital, a building of this kind would take 7 years plus, because it's not just a box, it's not just a straightforward kind of a hospital. It is absolutely beautiful. It looks like the most precious birthday cake. And it's based on Ayurvedic principles. And I heard Swami in a talk at the medical conference, and that was a miracle for me, because I was not supposed to be there, but I just happened to be outside the hospital. And this group of young doctors, they came to me and said, would you like to have a lift back into the village and to the medical symposium? And I thought, yes, please. I didn't waste a moment. I said, yes, please. I couldn't believe my luck. So I was actually sitting in the symposium, and Swami came in, and I sort of ducked down. I thought, oh my God, I'm here illegally. I don't want to be seen. But of course, he sort of looked at me and gave me a smile. Swami knows everything, so he knew I was there. And Swami said that this hospital is a 1,000-year project, and that ultimately man does not need any medicine, but it is the love of God, because we are not that far advanced to heal ourselves. It's the love of God that gives us this hospital as a gift. And I was in tears when Swami talked about it. So it is a 1,000-year project. So we'll be around, we'll hang around to see what happens in other lifetimes. And then I want to tell you how I came to making the film, The Miracle of Puttaparthi. You heard last week that I had my first trip to Swami in 1991. But in 1992, I went to Sai Celebration in London, and Professor Critchlow was invited to talk about the building of the miracle of the hospital in Puttaparthi. And you already heard about my inner voice last week. So again, I felt strongly the inner voice speaking to me, saying, you've got to make a film. Now, I've been employed for German television. I've never made a film independently. It was a very scary idea for me. I also had to teach, I wasn't a camera woman originally, so I had to teach myself the skills of using a camera. And I sat there in my seat while Professor Critchlow was speaking and said, oh my God, here we go again. I've got to talk to him when I get a chance and ask him if I can make a documentary about the super speciality hospital. So first chance I saw him and he came across my path, and I said, look, I'm very impressed with this concept of the hospital for the poor in rural India, and I'm interested in making a documentary. And he sort of, I could feel that he briefly checked his inner eye, and he said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. Let's do it. So obviously you saw a little bit of the result, and a documentary came out of that. But I've never done anything like that, and I'm telling you about this because it's Swami putting ideas into this Dropbox. It's a new term, I guess, a computer term, but I see the brain as a Dropbox. So he puts this idea in, and we go and get on with the job. So my motto has become feel the fear and do it anyway, just like giving this talk today, really. But I don't want to talk about the making of the Miracle of Puttaparthi anymore. You can watch that on psycast.org, or wait until we download a better version of it on the internet. I just want to say that after I'd made the documentary, I went back to see Dr. Sapphire, the late Dr. Sapphire, who was then director of the hospital, and he was always very warm and welcoming, and I felt quite at home in the hospital because I spent so much time in there filming. And he said to me that, because I was asking myself, well, what is the purpose of this? This is not for me, for my glory or whatever. This is Swami wanting this film, but what is the purpose? And there was Dr. Sapphire telling me that the film raised an amazing amount of money for the running of the hospital. It's been built by donation, but it had obviously to be available for free treatment for the poor. It had to be funds, had to have funds. So Dr. Sapphire now told me what the purpose was. It was for making people give funds for the running of the hospital. And I want to talk about how Swami uses us as instruments of his love. And with hindsight, so I feel that since I've been on my journey with him, everything is like a puzzle, fitting together like a puzzle. In 1997, I had a call from a devotee in London, Kiran Patel, and he asked me if I could come to Puttaparthi with him. He wanted pictures for an exhibition in his shop about the super speciality hospital. So I've been looking for another reason to go there and do some filming or photographing. And so I was very happy and booked a flight, and I knew I was going, so that was fine. But a few days later, I had another phone call from a BBC journalist called Jack Pitsey. He was quite a well-known correspondent before he retired for the BBC. And he said he was given my telephone number by the site president. It was Emma Levy at the time, I believe. And he wondered if I would come with him to India to make a film. He wants to meet this holy man. He told me his story. He is an atheist himself, or was. I don't know what happened to him since, but his story was quite remarkable. He had a young daughter, I think she was 12 years old, who became very, very ill. And he didn't know what to do. He went in and out of hospital with her, and the doctors had given up in finding any treatment, let alone a healing for this little girl. So he shared his problems with some friends who knew about Swami. And the friends said, well, let's make an experiment. We try and tune into Swami and your little girl for a couple of weeks running every day at the same time. We pray, we meditate, and we pray. And we see what happens. And so after 2 weeks, he was completely taken aback, because every day he could watch his daughter getting better and better. So that sparked his longing to meet Sai Baba and to go to India and to find out who he was. So we started filming in London. There was supposed to be the youth conference, and so we interviewed some young people at their first gathering before going to India. And we also went to a couple of houses in North London where Vibhuti was streaming out of, I don't know how many, countless photographs of Swami, Shirdi Baba, and statues. So even I was taken aback because I've not seen that prior to going to those houses. And but Jack Pitsey said to me, Louise, I'm going to believe in your guru when I see a miracle. And I thought, what? We're standing here in the middle of all these miracles. This is not normal. You know, nobody I know has so much dust in their house. It's quite a challenge for any housewife. And it was just streaming out. We were standing in front of the shrine in one of the homes, and the Vibhuti was just pouring out of the photographs. So if that was not a miracle, but he wanted a bigger miracle. So off we went to Puttaparthi. And he could not, because I'd booked already, he came a whole week later. So I flew to Puttaparthi first. And was very pleased to have 2 jobs to be done. So on the first day, I went with Kiran Patel to the hospital, and we were in a rickshaw, and lo and behold, in the distance, Swami's car was driving towards us, and I said, oh my God, there's Swami coming. So we quickly hopped out of the rickshaw and knelt on the road, and Swami stopped and gave us a blessing, and then drove off. And I was just completely struck, because that was so wonderful, and it was such a confirmation for me that this project also had his blessings. And we went to the hospital, and I had the freedom to walk around in all departments, the cardiology department, the neurology department, so my nerves. So, but let's put it that way, I was in every department, and I even went to film a little girl, a toddler. She was maybe 4 years old, beautiful little girl, and she was screaming, and they just had taken out of her little body 2 large kidney stones. Can you imagine, at the age of 4, a child with large kidney stones, what kind of pain she must have had? And I learned then that this was due to the toxic fluoride level in the drinking water in the Anantapur district, and this was caused by the severe drought. For over 20 years it hadn't rained, and they had to dig such deep wells that the water was highly toxic, was over-fluorinated, and it caused bone damage and deformations, especially in children. So I went back to my room, and I was very troubled by this. And but I knew at the same time that Swami had created his water project. So I was in my room in the ashram, and suddenly I had a knock on the door, and the young student when I opened, the young student was standing there, and he said to me, Swami would like to give you a car and an engineer, and you will go and visit the water project. So again, you can imagine my joy, and also what I want to make clear is that I didn't have the chance to ask Swami directly, like the Sai hippies in the 70s. They would have knocked on his door and said, Swami, can we go and film the water project? But I couldn't. I would have had to wait for an interview or interview. So I was extremely pleased that Swami read my mind. It was his project all along, and this is what I saw all the time, is he wanted me to go and see his work. So we went next morning. Swami supplied us with this beautiful little Maruti car and an engineer from the water project, and we drove into the countryside, and I could see for myself how dry the land was. And these are the statistics for the water project. Swami connected 700 villages to flowing drinking water. That meant 2,000 kilometers of pipelines coming from the Chitravati River, 400 bore wells, and a large number of filtration wells, and also 700 reservoir tanks with 1,000 litre of water capacity. An absolute massive project, which he undertook because he knocked on doors to have this happen and was refused. So Swami said, I'm going to take this project on myself. I'm going to help the people of Andhra Pradesh and provide them with drinking water. Jack Pitsey, before we go into London, to Puttaparthi, he said to me, well, Louise, when I get to India, when I get to the ashram, how will we meet up? How will I find you there? And I said to him, don't worry about it. And I really sort of felt it so strongly in my heart. I said, Swami will make sure we meet up. You just don't need to worry. So he looked a bit puzzled. He thought, it's a strange meeting place, nowhere in particular. But he had literally just set foot into the ashram for 10 minutes when I met up with him outside the Western canteen. And I said, see, it worked perfectly. Swami's methods of getting people together is just without fail. And we started filming. There was the youth conference going on, and all these wonderful young people were there, the future of our planet, the future of our world, and young people from 137 countries were parading the flag of their country, and Swami sang and gave talks, and it was just an incredible event. And perhaps some of you listening to this will remember carrying a flag and being there. And Swami's project for education in human values is more important than ever, living in these very difficult times. And I firmly believe that the future, our children are the future, and we have to give them the best. We have to give them a solid ground to stand on, and that is what Swami was doing. He has given the young generation a solid ground to stand on. And I was just completely overwhelming. And we interviewed all these young souls, who, not young souls, old souls, but in a young body. And their reasons for coming to India and being so sincere and feeling the love for Swami. It was just absolutely wonderful. While sadly, our journalist, Jack, he remained a skeptic. And I just want to sort of come in with this little anecdote, which I thought is quite funny, because he after his first darshan, we met up every day after darshan, and I saw him coming towards me from at a distance, and he looked upset. He looked angry, to be precise. And I said, "What's the matter? How come you come out of darshan looking so angry?" And he said, "There was no space to sit." And then on top of it all, the Sevadar said to him, "If you'd cut your toenails, you would have had more space." So he wasn't amused. But there you are. We all have our challenges coming to Swami. We're all on a very steep learning curve, and I must admit, he was longing so much for this elusive interview and for the miracle. He wanted to see the miracle. And one day, Swami walked along the devotees and collecting letters, and then he made a beeline for him in the darshan line. He was in the first row on the man's side, and I was very happy. I thought, "Oh, it's going to happen now." Swami's giving him attention. So Jack went on his knees and said to Swami, "Swami, interview, please." And Swami stood in front of him and waved his hands, as he always does, and gave him a mountain of vibhuti. And what happened then is actually captured on video in the documentary. He just did this. And I felt my heart, when I saw it through the camera lens, my heart just jumped. I thought, no. But here we go. It is very difficult for us humans to recognize a miracle when it's right in front of our eyes. Sometimes we're so blind, or we're looking for something else, and God sends us a miracle, but the way He thinks it's fit for us, and it's not our will, it's His will. But if we think our will has to happen, we may miss the most incredible miracle right in front of our eyes. Anyway, this is my personal thought, and you may agree with it or not, but I think sadly we are sometimes blind to what's right in front of our eyes.
And me? I'm up on my knees for a chance to go into that famous interview room. Agnostic still and deeply skeptical of the idea of any holy man producing jewellery, however it's done, I want all the same to see for myself. I'm so intent on getting him to call me for an interview, I hardly notice when he puts ash into my hands. The ash that devotees treat with reverence, I actually wipe off.
And Jack said to me after the interview, he said that after his experience, he said, well, he realized that in his head, he's got this saying going, God make me, or Lord make me a good man, but not just yet. So I thought, well, this was a very good and interesting insight. Lord, make me a good man, but not just yet. So I think this explains all. A few days later, we completed all our filming. On the last day, and only a couple of hours before we had to drive back to Bangalore to catch our flight, Swami walked towards me in darshan and asked me, I don't know how many times he asked me, where do you come from? And I've never been able to think of a clever thing to say. I would have liked to, but I said, UK, Swami. And he said, go. So I went off to the veranda to have an interview with Swami. And obviously I wanted to attract Jack Pizzey's attention because I wanted him to be in the interview. I could see him. He was sitting in one of the front lines, right in front of the veranda. He was given a privileged space, and on the men's section. And I waved, and the Sevadal, very kind lady next to me, she said, he's not seeing you, is he? And can I help? So both of us stood there waving and making signs, and I wish I could have whistled or something like that, but respect for where I was kept me from doing that. So Swami came back from his round of darshan and opened the interview door, and I still tried to catch his eyes and just Jack Pizzey's eyes and attention, because I didn't want him to miss this very precious interview. So but he didn't. I don't know why he could not see me, because I'm not exactly small. I'm 5'7", or I was then. I'm 5'6" now, shrinking gradually. But 5'7" and with a bright sari, he couldn't have missed me. And he was only about 10 meters away from me. So why couldn't he see me? Swami's miracle. Well, Swami's mystery, I meant to say. So we went inside the interview room, and I was lucky. I sat next to Swami's chair, and the love was just pouring out of him, and it was completely overwhelming. We were a group of, there were some Americans, some English people, and some Dutch people. And there was a young man who Swami said, "It's your birthday today." And Swami waved his hand, and I saw, and for those who've seen the interview last week with me, I always see a light coming, or I saw a light coming out of the palm of his hand. And he held his palm like that, and this amazing fruit grew out of the palm of his hand. And he captured it very quickly and gave it to the young man and said, "It's a golden plum. Swami made a golden plum for you." And the young man was beaming with joy. And he said, "Eat now. It's good for you." So he started munching away on this golden, beautiful fruit, golden plum.
Being agnostic was hurting. Couldn't I forget my doubts and just believe? Ahead of us, on their way home too, were some of the people who'd been in that interview with Sai Baba, which I'd missed. They would stop the night at Bangalore. If I could catch them there at the hotel, with this morning still fresh in their memories, I could at least ask what it had been like.
Cooper, tell us about the most important thing that happened to you this morning in the interview room.
This morning, Swami asked to see a ring that he had given me 2.5 years ago, a diamond ring, and I showed it to him yesterday, actually, in Darshan, and the stone had come out of it, and I had lost it completely, and I held it up to Swami, and he took it, and he looked at it, and he said, "Where's the stone?" Really, with a big smile on his face, and I said, "Swami, I don't know, I lost it when I came here for 70th birthday." And he looked and he said, "Did you give it to your girlfriend?" And then in the interview, he passed the ring around to a few of the devotees, and people were saying, "Nothing, Swami, it's just a hole, it's empty." And he looked and he passed it and gave it away and got it back and gave it to some more people, and he finally took it. And he said, "What is there?" And when he held it out, he held out this ring. Beautiful diamond in it, exactly the same kind of stone, and like that, Swami had really made my life.
Is that the way you saw it, Sandra?
Well, I was sitting very close. I was sitting right in front, and I was sitting about there to Swami, and he'd just shown it to several people. He'd actually thrown it, tossed it very casually and light-heartedly at somebody, and they'd caught it and looked at it, and he said, "What is it? What does it look like to you?" And they said, "Well, there's just a hole there in the ring, Swami." And he did it to David also, and they said the same thing, and then he took it back and he sort of smiled and he held it up so everyone could see, and just like that, and gave it to you, and there was the stone sparkling like that in the ring.
When everybody said, "There's no stone, there is nothing, Swami," Swami said, "But nothingness contains everything," which I thought was a very beautiful thing to say. We all perceived the same situation.
Now there was a young American guy in there. It was his birthday.
Yes.
What happened about that?
Well, that was very beautiful because Swami said to him, "Today's your birthday, your 18th birthday." And we all saw this most beautiful fruit, a golden plum growing in his hand. It was more pear-shaped.
When you say growing in his hand, can you describe exactly the
It
process?
just grew out of the palm of his hand. What else can I say, except that it literally grew out of the palm of his hand, and then he captured it and gave it to the boy and said, "Eat it. It's your birthday."
As you were watching?
Yes, as we were watching. And then he said to Sandra and Emmy Levy and myself, he said, "We go to the small room." So we went, the three of us with Swami, 4 of us, we went to the small interview room. And we all know how Swami knows our thoughts. He's omnipresent. He knows everything about us. So I think I blushed. He said to me, "I know what you're thinking when you sit at home." He said, "You're upset with Swami and you say, 'Why don't I have a husband?'" And I felt completely stunned by his remark. And then he said, "Don't worry," with such love. And he looked at me, "Don't worry. I'm always with you. You are not alone. You're never alone." But I feel that he's not just saying that to me, but saying that to everyone, because it would be foolish to think that we're alone. It just feels that way sometimes. I think it's just, but Swami is there, And he said more things, which on a personal basis, but he then turned his attention to Sandra and Emmy. And I didn't listen, I didn't hear what he said to them. I was in a complete state of bliss. And then I noticed he was stretching his feet towards me. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I had too much awe to touch his feet. I was in such awe of his closeness. And then I thought, must not miss this opportunity. And I started massaging his feet. And I thought, they're so velvety, they felt like pure velvet. And I sort of, I must have tickled him, because he suddenly giggled and he wriggled his toes, and because I was actually twiddling his toes. It was just such a blissful, wonderful moment. And I don't know, I think I lost complete track of time and space. The interview came to an end and we went back out into the room and sat down again, and Swami asked us some questions, and then went to his magic cupboard and picked out a bundle of ropes. And I told this story last week, but he wanted to give, I think he had 4 ropes in his hand, and he sort of handed out a couple, and then with the third one he came to me, and this hand came over the top quicker than a chameleon's tongue and snatched it. So I mentioned last week that my lesson in this was detachment from the material things. So my focus is on the inner view, on Swami in my heart. Anyway, as I said before, I would have loved to have that rope all the same, inner view, Swami in my heart, and a rope to hang up in my meditation room. I just want to say that more than ever, we need to apply Swami's message of truth, righteous conduct, peace, love, and non-violence. Because righteous conduct is love in action. And I wish you all unity in diversity. I was always impressed with that saying, unity in diversity. We have so much conflict now because we categorize, I don't want to get political here, sorry, but unity in diversity. I wish you a peaceful, healthy, and happy life. Sai Ram. And I wish you a very, very happy Swami life. Sai Ram.